second thing to understand. Israel was founded as a Jewish state. But now ask yourself, what exactly does that mean? People had lots of ideas about what a Jewish state should look like. Some called for equality for all citizens. But what was created, in practice, was institutional discrimination against non-Jews. In other words, Israel ended up being built on a blueprint of exclusion. The Israeli government wants maximum land and resources for Jews, but not the Palestinians living there. That's why, inside Israel, Jews get special privileges, including rights to land and housing, that are denied to the Palestinian citizens, who make up 20% of Israel's population. That's also part of why Israel has never defined its borders. In fact, they still hold on to land, the West Bank and Gaza, that they conquered in the war in 1967. Since then, Israel has built Jewish settlements throughout the occupied West Bank, building Jewish-only cities and supplying them with infrastructure like roads and army camps, schools, and even a college. Military occupations are meant to be temporary, but after 40-plus years, this one looks permanent and entirely unjust. In the West Bank, Israeli Jewish settlers and Palestinians live on the same land, but must live under two completely separate and unequal systems of Israeli law. The Jewish settlers dominate the natural resources, including water and agricultural land, and they're backed by the Israeli army. To maintain the occupation, Israel has demolished thousands of Palestinian homes and orchards, confiscated Palestinian land, bombed a captive civilian population in Gaza, and punished resistance with raids, arrests, and assassinations, all to gain maximum land, while making life so difficult for Palestinians that they will either leave or be too afraid.
Welcome back to Philippines Uncut. I'm Buddy Kunan, your host. Tonight's topic is understanding the Israel-Palestine controversy. And joining us still is Jamal Ashley Abbas. He's a professorial lecturer of FEU and FIATI. And joining him is our good friend Hans Palacios, who is a former student union leader in Richmond University in the UK, in London. So welcome back, Ashley. And of course, welcome, Hans. Now, Hans, you've been on the show several times in different capacities. Now, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, I think I was really fortunate because in the 70s, my mother, who was a diplomat, was assigned in London. Her assignment in London changed everything for us. It opened up a new world, the international scene. So when we landed in London in 79, we had the Shah being removed, we had the problems in Afghanistan, and everything came, the Iranian hostage siege, Carter and all that. So this whole thing was something that was open, to a very, very innocent mind. So we lived there for about 9 years. And during that time, all this information was flowing, but there was something that happened to me that made me really digest it. I was fortunate that when I went to university in London, that I was able to run for student council president in my second semester, and I won that election. We had 2 campuses at that time, and then upon my next term, I decided to bring the campuses together and then unionize the thing.
Okay.
That my reason was because it would help unify. We had over 80 nationalities, and having one campus and having one president and one vice president would make things a lot easier to avoid the conflict between the campuses and also to unite the nationalities. The majority nationality was American because we were an American international school. But that exposure of talking to 80 nationalities, every campaign time, I had to understand their plights and all that. I had to understand their stories. So that gave me the education I need and the background. And when I left in 87 was the year that Hamas came into place.
Okay. Okay.
So when I arrived back in the Philippines, I already had a very good idea what was going on. And I just maintained, I kept in touch with my friends. And now with social networking, we're able to exchange ideas and to enlighten people.
Yeah. Now, you were in the studio while we had the 20 minutes of discussion with Jamal prior to you coming on the show. What are your thoughts on this whole thing, what we all talked about, the conflict and what we thought it's about land and the displacement of the Palestinians who were there already when they decided to create the Jewish state? What are your feelings about this?
But there are a lot of problems with understanding this situation. It's a matter of perception. one perception is everybody thinks that Israel and Hamas are on equal footing. Now, if you have, I'll analogize this in the best way I can, basketball. If you have the Miami Heat come to the Philippines to fight the best team that Ateneo Juniors can muster, that is the comparison. It's worse than David and Goliath.
Yes, yes.
So you have a country with so many planes, with so many tanks, with all the ammunition, and you have a country with nothing. They're not
Yes.
even a country.
Yes, so as you saw from the video, where he said usually when there is say a war, after the war ends, the military occupiers leave,
Yeah.
and the original inhabitants can come back to their homes, and after the conflict is cleared, no. But that's not what's happening now.
Yeah, and if you look at what happened in 1947 when the Europeans came in, the Zionists came in, immediately they took a majority of the land. There were only 500, there were less than 500,000 Jews, Zionist Jews, and then 1.5 million Palestinians. And in a matter of 1 year, they created so much conflict, wiped out over 400 towns, kicked out a lot of Palestinians, and that is where the problem started.
Alam mo, di ba Jamal, sinabi ko nga I said the first segment, it's so simple actually. The moment you put people, or people force themselves on a place where there are already inhabitants, that is really a recipe for disaster, no? And that for me, I'm not an expert, by no means an expert, the whole Israeli-Palestinian conflict, so I invite you guys here because you guys know more than me. But it's so simple. That's exactly what I think the problem is. What do you think, Jamal?
Yeah. And, it was only after Camp David when finally Egypt signed the peace treaty with Israel that the people stopped talking about an Arab-Israeli war or conflict. This used to be an Arab-Israeli conflict. But because when Egypt said, okay, I'll have peace, and somehow the Arabs receded and only the Palestinians. So it became an Israeli-Palestinian. But if you really come to think of it, there's no such thing as a Palestinian nation. There's only an Arab nation. They are just one.
Yes.
These nation states were creations of America, France, and England.
Yes,
They're European constructs.
Yes. And sabi nyo nga, what you said earlier, you really pity these Palestinian refugees because when they go outside, they've been displaced. They're in Jordan, they're in Lebanon, and God knows where else. They're not even accepted by their own fellow Arabs. Hans?
Well, it's very difficult because the perception here, especially here in Asia, is that they're terrorists. They've been branded as terrorists.
That's what we hear a lot, yeah.
We should understand these things. We're Filipinos. We've been through this. In 1898, when the Americans bought us from Spain and they annexed us, we had our own uprising. And our own Arafat, Andres Bonifacio, and all of the followers who went up there against Americans, they were also branded as terrorists. They were freedom fighters.
Yeah, but okay, let's go to this conflict. What you hear a lot of people, a lot of Israeli sympathizers saying that, the army is going after terrorists. Hamas is a UN recognized by the UN as a terrorist group. So this is why they're going in hard because now the mood is let's get after these terrorists, whether it's Al Qaeda, whether it's Al Shabaab, or now Hamas.
As this, not to be have a cliche again that one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist. That's exactly what it is. They branded it. Media was able to sensationalize it. They show you the atrocities that are happening because of the retaliations. Remember, Buddy, the Jews came from a Holocaust, were put in Israel, and that same treatment they received from the Germans is exactly what they're doing to the Palestinians. They put them inside one wall. There's no water. There's 3 days ago, they bombed the power plant, so now we're expecting that they won't have power. They're bombing the hospitals. They have no farms. You're a second son. I'll give you a good example. If I were an Israeli, I threw a rock at someone, I would be arrested. I would be tried in a civil court. But if I were Palestinian, I would be tried in a military court.
No, it really is like apartheid. I was telling Jamal earlier. In fact, Nelson Mandela said, right? He said something like the freedom of the Palestinians is tied to our own freedom.
Yes.
And this is before South Africa became free. Now, I understand we have a nice quote a nice video excerpt from Jimmy Carter.
Yes.
And, you know, I mean, Jimmy Carter is a humanitarian, and I don't think anyone can claim that he is anything other than a humanitarian.
Yes.
And we have a nice video, which we're going to show now. It's an interview about his feelings on exactly what's going on now in Gaza, in the West Bank. So can we have the video?
Welcome back to Hardball. We're back with the 39th President of the United States, Jimmy Carter. His new book is called Palestine, Peace, Not Apartheid. And President Carter, why did you use the word apartheid in the book's title?
Well, let's look at the entire title, if you don't mind. The first word is Palestine, which involves the land that belongs to the Palestinians, not the Israelis. I didn't refer to Israel because there's no semblance of anything relating to apartheid within the nation of Israel. And I also emphasized the word not, that is peace and not apartheid. That's what I hope to accomplish with this book, is some move toward that goal. But there's no doubt that within the occupied territories, Palestinian land, that there is a horrendous example of apartheid. The occupation of Palestinian land, the confiscation of that land that doesn't belong to Israel, the building of settlements on it, the colonization of that land, and then the connection of those isolated but multiple settlements, more than 200 of them, with each other by highways on which Palestinians can't travel, and quite often where Palestinians cannot even cross. So the persecution of the Palestinians now under the occupied territories is under the occupation forces is one of the worst examples of human rights deprivation that I know. And I think
even worse, though, than a place like Rwanda?
Yes, I think, yes. You mean now?
Yes.
Yeah, I
think the impression now of the Israelis, of the Palestinians by the Israelis, is worse than a situation in Africa.
That is former President Jimmy Carter, the 39th. Was he 39th President of the United States?
United States.
So, I mean, so very, very powerful words from former Jimmy Carter. He said occupation. He said things like apartheid, like that.
You're looking at the way they're talking about that interview. Even there, you can see already that the interviewer is trying to play down by trying to make it look like it's nothing compared to Rwanda. But if you look at what happened in Rwanda, what's happening in Gaza is worse.
That's what Jimmy Carter said.
Jimmy Carter's point.
Yeah.
But he's trying to play it down. That is the job. I wanted to say that people watching this show right now, they're not going to get a regular view on what they understand to be the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So people are going to be shocked by this. But what I'm saying is that this is a time for enlightenment,
Yes.
a time for learning. Media right now made it so available for us to find out what's really going. In the last couple of weeks, you've got Chile breaking off diplomatic ties, Evo Morales the other day already talking, and a lot of the countries wanting an investigation. It was only the United States which voted against investigating into the what's going on. The BRICS countries have already...
Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. BRICS.
And even the king and queen of Sweden had joined protests already, and that's because of the media. Information is free. And one good thing about now...
Yeah.
Not mainstream media.
Yeah, well, not mainstream. But it's becoming a lot of people don't rely on the mainstream media anymore. People who want to know, they already know that you don't go to the mainstream media.
Yeah.
You know?
Jamal, why is that the case? How come it seems that if you go to mainstream media, why is mainstream media apparently so, I'll say it's pretty biased in favor of one side? Why is that?
Well, first, it's the ownership.
Okay, let's say it. Let's talk about the ownership.
All the media in practically the world is really owned by, six companies?
Okay,
GE and all those, and many of them have
All of them.
Are?
connections with the Jewish community.
Okay.
They're owned by the billionaires.
Hollywood is Jewish territory. And
Music industry.
And Jon Stewart suffered this fate. Huh? I mean, like anyone, I've noticed, anyone who even criticizes what the state of Israel is doing, and I'm saying our beef is not, or the beef is not with the Jewish people. We love the Jewish people. I love the Jewish people. I have many Jewish friends. But anytime anyone even says something critical of the state of Israel, parang you're branded right away as a Jew hater.
Yeah.
And that's something people
anti-Semitic.
don't... Anti-Semitic.
That's a term. And even the word Semitic, we take it out of context. Semitic, it comes from the language that the people speak.
The Arabs are Semites.
There are more Semite-speaking Arabs more than 300 million than the 7 million Jews. So if you say you're anti-Semitic, you include the Arabs who speak that language.
Hans, hold that thought. We have to pause for break. But guys, more Philippines Uncut and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict when we come back.